Hey, welcome to Lighthouse. My name's Steven. Tonight we have 3 scary true stories about the St. Augustine Lighthouse, a diner in Medford, and the Wall Man. In February 2015, a group of ghost investigators went to the St. Augustine Lighthouse in St. Augustine, Florida. The lighthouse, built in the 1870s, is known as one of the most haunted places in the U.S. People had reported strange things happening there for years, and some believed it was because of accidents that happened when the lighthouse was being built. The investigators were led by a man named Eric. They wanted to see if they could find any proof of ghost. They brought equipment like EMF detectors to measure electric energy, audio recorders to catch sounds, and special cameras to look for heat. They also wrote down everything they noticed. By 8 p.m., they had cameras and recorders set up in key spots, like the lighthouse stairs, the keeper's house, and the observation deck at the top of the lighthouse. They split into small teams to explore. You know, you can actually buy lighthouses. Every few years, I think about doing something completely insane, and I remember looking up in Ohio. There's a lighthouse you can buy in Ohio. And it's pretty cool. Can you imagine living on a lighthouse? You have to take a boat to get there, but it's pretty cool. You can actually do that. Around 8:45 p.m., Lisa, one of the investigators, felt dizzy while climbing the stairs in the lighthouse. She stopped on the 12th step and told her partner Dan that it felt like someone was standing behind her. At the same time, Dan's EMF detector spiked, even though there was no reason for it to do that. He wrote it down as unusual. While Lisa and Dan stayed on the stairs for a few minutes, Dan checked the area for any reason the EMF detector might have spiked, but he couldn't find anything. Lisa mentioned that the feeling of being watched went away after she walked back down the stairs, but the spike on the detector was still recorded in their notes. At the same time, Eric and another investigator, Mark, were checking out the keeper's house. They left an audio recorder running in the basement and went upstairs. When they came back at 9:15 p.m., the recorder hadn't moved. But later when they listened to it, they heard faint voices on the recording. The voices were hard to make out, but it sounded like someone was saying help and stairs. Mark checked the history of the area, looking through records on his tablet, while Eric stayed focused on their setup in the house. Mark found reports of a worker who died near the stairs during the lighthouse's construction in the 1870s, which made the mention of stairs in the audio recording more significant. At 10 p.m., the group met to share what they found so far. Lisa said she felt better after leaving the lighthouse stairs, but mentioned that her left side got cold while she was on the observation deck. Eric and Mark played the recording from the basement for everyone. The team decided to split up again and focus on specific areas where they'd gathered the most evidence. Eric and Dan returned to the stairs, Lisa went to the observation deck again, and Mark stayed in the keeper's house to monitor the basement. Eric and Dan climbed the stairs at 10:30 p.m. Both later said that they heard faint tapping noises as they went up, but their audio recorders didn't catch the sounds. At one point, Dan stopped on a landing because the EMF detector spiked again. He wrote down the time, 10:42 p.m. As they climbed higher, Eric checked the EMF detector, but didn't get any unusual readings. However, when he turned around to head back down, Dan said he felt the stairs vibrate slightly under his feet. He tested the same spot by walking up and down again, but it didn't happen a second time. Eric noted this was another unexplained event. Meanwhile, Lisa stood on the observation deck and tried to replicate the cold sensation she'd felt earlier. She stayed in the same spot for over 20 minutes, but didn't feel the same coldness again. However, she did notice that her EMF detector would occasionally spike while she stood near the railing. Lisa recorded the data and took a photo of the area with her phone to compare later. Mark stayed near the basement recorder in the keeper's house, checking for any new sounds. At 10:45 p.m., he heard what sounded like footsteps on the floor above him. He went upstairs immediately, but he didn't see anyone. When he played back the audio recorder later, the sound of footsteps was faint but clear. He logged this as another piece of evidence. Later, Mark and Lisa checked the footage from the heat camera they set up to watch the stairs. At 10:42 p.m., the same time Dan's EMF spiked, the camera caught what looked like the heat outline of a person standing at the bottom of the stairs. So I actually don't know much about this. I'm learning about EMF stuff as we go here. So you're measuring heat, cold, and you have an EMF reader. The figure stayed for about 30 seconds before disappearing. When the group reviewed the footage together, they couldn't find any other logical explanation for the heat signature. Nobody was near the base of the stairs at the time, and the team had already ruled out other heat sources in the area. The group finished their investigation around midnight. Over the next few weeks, they went through all the evidence they'd collected. The voices from the basement and the heat signature were the strongest clues that something strange had happened. Mark sent the audio clips to another investigator outside their group for review. The other investigator agreed that the words help and stairs could be heard, but couldn't find any technical explanation for how they ended up on the recording. The lighthouse was checked for radio interference or outside noise, but none matched the voices. The team also sent the heat camera footage to an expert who confirmed the heat signature resembled a person. However, since no one was physically present at that location during the time of the recording, it was considered unexplainable. Even today, people visit the St. Augustine Lighthouse to search for ghosts or experience something spooky. The investigators couldn't say for sure what caused the strange events they recorded, but they couldn't explain them either, and the mystery remains unsolved. I hope it's not St. Augustine, because I'm going to get 400 comments if it is. Yeah, I think we have some ghost hunters in the commenters. Let me know, I'm curious, because I'm just getting into the true story. So how do you tell? How do you tell if a place is haunted? Is that it? You're looking for heat, you're looking for cold. What does the EMF reader do exactly? I should probably know that, but I don't. I'm new to this too. And you're listening for sound. So what else is there? What are the key things you look for if you think that a place might be haunted? Okay, story 2. On a quiet stretch of Highway 45 near Medford, Oregon. You know, people just told me this. You guys just told me this last week, and I already forget how to say it. There's an old place called the Last Song Diner. It opened in 1953 and was once a popular spot for travelers. Over the years, business slowed down, and most people forgot about it. But the diner became known for something strange, a mysterious jukebox. Am I the only one that thought it was pronounced jukebox until I was like 25 years old? The Jukebox is an old motel from the 1950s, shiny and clean, even though the rest of the diner looks run down. It only plays one song called Your Last Goodbye. Nobody knows who wrote the song or where it came from. Music experts, what's a music expert, have never found any records of it. People who hear it say it's a slow, sad song, and the words are about loss and regret. For decades, people have told stories about the song and the strange things that happen when it plays. Some say they've seen ghosts appear in the diner while the song's on. These ghosts don't seem scary. They usually appear for a short time and then disappear when the music stops. One of the first stories about this happened in 1972. A truck driver named Jack stopped at the diner late at night. Is it Jack Burton? While the song played, a man in a World War II uniform walked up to him. The man thanked him for his service and disappeared before Jack could respond. Jack was so upset, he told the local sheriff. The sheriff didn't believe him. Jack later spoke about the incident with a fellow truck driver who told him the story matched a legend about the diner. The driver said he'd also played the jukebox once. but nobody appeared. Another story happened in 1985. A woman named Laura went to the diner with her teenage daughter. Laura decided to play the song on the jukebox. While it was playing, she said she saw her mother, who died years earlier, sitting in one of the booths. Laura said the ghost looked at her and seemed to speak, but she couldn't hear any words. When the song ended, the ghost faded away. Laura returned to the diner several times after that, hoping to see her mother again, but the jukebox didn't seem to work in the same way. In 2003, a group of paranormal investigators came to the diner. They wanted to study the jukebox and the stories about it. They brought cameras and other equipment to record anything unusual. The investigators said they caught blurry shapes on their cameras and strange static. They also said they felt sad and heavy in the diner when the song played. They posted their findings online, but many people thought it wasn't real. The investigators also claimed to have played the song 4 times in a row, hoping to trigger more activity, but they said nothing happened after the second play. A man named Tony, who lived in the area, shared his experience in 1997. Tony said he and his cousin stopped at the diner late at night while driving back from a camping trip. Tony played the song because his cousin dared him to. As the song played, Tony said he saw an older man sitting near the jukebox who smiled and raised a glass at him. Tony didn't know the man and thought he was just another customer until his cousin said she couldn't see anyone sitting there. The man disappeared when the song ended. Tony later asked around town, but couldn't find any records of anyone matching the man's description. In 2010, a waitress at the diner, Karen, claimed she experienced something unusual during a slow afternoon. She was cleaning tables while a customer played the jukebox. Karen said she saw a man in a leather jacket standing near the counter, looking at an old menu. She assumed he was a customer who'd come in while she was working, and she didn't think much of it. However, when she turned around, the man was gone. The customer who had played the jukebox didn't seem to notice anything unusual. Karen asked the owner, Walter, about it later, but he only shrugged and told her not to worry about it. Even though the ghosts appear, nobody's ever been hurt by them. The diner's owner, Walter, says he thinks the spirits just want to finish something they couldn't when they were alive. He once told the story about a traveling salesman who saw his brother standing by the jukebox. The brother had died in a car crash years earlier. The salesman said the ghost looked at him and mouthed the words, "It wasn't your fault," before disappearing. Walter didn't share much more about it. Something unusual happened in 2017. A man named David heard about the diner and came to see the jukebox. He played the song over and over, trying to see if a ghost would appear. People in the diner said the air felt heavy after he played it 3 times. Some thought they saw shadows near the jukebox, but no ghosts came out. Walter eventually asked David to leave and told him, "You shouldn't play the song too much." It's like that John Mulaney story. Maybe the ghosts just really don't like this song. In 2015, a trucker named Sarah claimed she experienced an unusual event while standing at the diner during a heavy rainstorm. She decided to play the song while waiting for the weather to clear. During the second play, Sarah said she saw a woman sitting at the corner who smiled at her. Sarah didn't recognize her, but later described the woman to Walter, who said she resembled a customer who used to visit the diner regularly in the 1970s, but had passed away in 1981. Sarah said the encounter made her feel peaceful, though she didn't try to play the song again. The diner is still open, but it doesn't get many visitors. Locals warn people not to mess with the jukebox unless they're ready for what might happen. Walter keeps the jukebox in good condition, but won't let anyone take it away or study it. Nobody knows where the last goodbye came from or why these strange things happen. Some people think it's all made up, but others say their experiences at the diner felt very real. The last song Diner continues to be a mystery, and people who visit often leave with more questions than answers. What if you're a ghost and you're cursed to stay there forever? And you just want to rest and people just keep playing these terrible songs over and over again. Okay, and the last story for tonight. In 1997, a 42-year-old horror writer named Bradley moved to the small town of Redford Falls, Minnesota. He wanted a quiet place to focus on his work. Not long after he moved into a rental house on Pine Street, he went to an estate sale. The sale was for a man named Henry who'd passed away. At the sale, Bradley bought an old wooden desk. It was large, heavy, and had some interesting carvings on it. He paid $75 for it and brought it home to use in his office. 2 days after setting up the desk, Bradley noticed something strange. While running his hand along one side of it, he felt a small bump in the wood. After looking closer, he realized there was a hidden drawer built into the desk. Using a butter knife, he managed to pop it open. Inside, there was an old rusty key and a folded piece of paper that looked very old. The paper had a short note written on it. The note said, "Don't open the back door." The handwriting was shaky and rushed, as if the person who wrote it had been nervous. Bradley thought it was odd, but didn't take it seriously. He put the key and the note in one of the desk's regular drawers and went about his day. That night, as he worked late in his office, he heard a knock at the back door of the house. It wasn't loud, but it was slow and steady. 3 knocks in a row. Bradley ignored it. He figured it was just some kids playing a prank, or maybe the wind making noise. And the knocking eventually stopped. But it didn't stop for good. The next night, the same thing happened. At 10:15 p.m., there were 3 knocks at the back door, spaced evenly apart. And this became a nightly routine. Bradley didn't believe in anything supernatural, but the timing of the knocks began to bother him. He tried to ignore it and started writing a new book instead. The strange note had given him an idea for a story. In the book, he wrote about a writer who found a desk with a warning note. The writer in the story accidentally released a strange creature called the Wall Man. The Wall Man was a mysterious figure that lived inside the walls of houses. In the story, the creature only appeared after someone opened a door that should have stayed closed. Bradley became obsessed with writing the story. He wrote faster than ever before, completing whole chapters in just a few days. But as he wrote, something strange started happening. He realized the knocks at his back door seemed to match the speed of his typing. When he typed quickly, the knocks came faster. When he stopped, the knocks stopped too. Even though the connection felt odd, Bradley brushed it off as his imagination. But the knocking started getting louder and began coming from other doors in his house. One night, he heard knocking at the front door. Another night, it was his bedroom door. It always came at the same time, 10:15 p.m., and it was always 3 knocks. Feeling unsettled, Bradley decided to look into the history of the desk. He went to the local library and found records about the man who'd owned it before him. The desk had belonged to a man named Henry, who'd inherited it from his grandfather. Henry's grandfather was known in town for studying strange, mysterious things. People in Redford Falls said Henry had become paranoid in his later years. He always kept his back door locked, no matter the season. What season can you keep your door unlocked? Are there less burglaries in the fall? Is it true that people don't lock their door in Canada? These are the questions I have. The librarian noticed what Bradley was researching and gave him a warning. She said, Some stories in Redford Falls are best left untold. She didn't explain what she meant, but suggested he get rid of the desk if it was causing him trouble. Why can people never be specific in horror stories? Despite the warning, Bradley kept writing his book. He added more details about the wall man, describing it as a shadowy figure that could mess with people's minds and draw them into danger. The louder the knocking became in his real life, the darker his story got. One night, the knocking was so loud, it caused a picture frame to fall off his wall. At this point, Bradley decided to finally check the back door. He grabbed the key he'd found in the hidden drawer and tried it in the lock. It fit perfectly, but when he turned it, nothing happened. He closed the door and went back to his writing. Wait, so did he open the door? He must have opened the door. The next night, the knocking didn't just stay at one door. It moved all around the house. He heard it at the back door, then the front door, then his bedroom door. The sound followed him wherever he went. It was loud and constant. The next morning, Bradley packed up his things and left the house. He didn't take the desk with him. Before leaving, he wrote a new note and put it in the desk's hidden drawer. His note said, "Heed this advice. It's real." Bradley's manuscript, titled The Wall Man, was found after his death in 2002. However, the book was never published. The desk, along with a house on Pine Street, remain abandoned. No one in Redford Falls wanted to live there. People said you could still hear knocking at the back door late at night, but no one ever stayed long enough to check. To this day, the story of Bradley and his desk is still told in Redwood Falls. Some say it's just a creepy story. Others believe it's a warning about the dangers of unlocking things that were meant to stay locked. And the case remains unsolved. I don't know what I would do in that situation. You gotta open your door at some point. Let me know, would you never open your door? I mean, it's just a note, too. Granted, I mean, when he typed, things would happen, so I would have left the house. I would have left the desk, I would have left the house. I wonder if there's actually haunted items. I suspect there is, or there are. Let me know what you think. Thank you for watching, and I will see you tomorrow night.